So on to our more detailed look at the local area economy, and we of course have recognized that there are things that are going on in local economies that are not always obvious to us from the economic statistics that we have available, and so we turn to to local expertise to more fully develop our look at the Missoula area economy. And to do that, we want to do two things. First of all, I want to recognize again First Interstate Bank of Missoula for their support and the support that they've given us for these seminars. And I'm going to introduce from First Interstate the Retail Banking Group Manager and Vice President, Sue LaRue. Sue, please welcome Sue. Sue is going to say a few words to us and then introduce Dick King, our next speaker.
Thank you. We are proud to continue to support this forum for us business leaders to get together. So first of all, I want to say First Interstate believes that we build strong communities by creating opportunities for people that includes our customers and employees. We think it's just good business. So I want to have the First Interstate people that are here stand up so we can recognize them. I know you're there. Okay, so speaking of business, I'll have to put my glasses on for this though. And I don't know, is Dick here? Okay, good, because I don't want to do his presentation up here. Well, here to expand our look on the Missoula area economy, we have with us today someone who day-to-day basis is involved in assisting Missoula businesses sustain and expand their operations, as well as recruit new businesses that would enhance the Missoula economy. So to add to our Missoula area economy, I would like to welcome our Director of the Missoula Economic Development Corporation, Dick King. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and I want to first thank the Bureau once again for the good work that they do year in, year out. I think it helps give us a framework, and the consistency of their research is extremely valuable to all of us. I commend their job and thank them again for their hard work. I also want to thank the sponsors of this Outlook seminar, and I can share a little story. I think the Missoulian talked about the road trip. My wife works at the public library, and she can testify to the road trip because Paul Polson shows up to check out a lot of audio tapes before he starts the road trip. And I also want to commend the Bureau for taking this presentation, taking it throughout the state, including places like Lewistown and Havre this year, I think. It's truly a statewide effort, and you're to be commended for that. I want to take just a few minutes today to talk about a subject that's brand new to everybody. Nobody's heard this word lately: change. We're going to change, right? Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about some changing things occurring locally, maybe a little more relevant than some of the discussion going on. I'd like to talk about a little change in land use, how we live. I'd like to talk about a company that's changing to adapt to market changes and how it plans to grow by responding to that change, and also how I think change in resource management is creating potential for economic opportunity. Well, I guess if we're going to talk about change, we should talk about motherhood and apple pie, clean up, heart health, and stewardship. I want to talk about the Brownfields program in Missoula and its potential. The project currently underway. It's leveraged about 18 to 1 on $1,125,000 investment for cleanup of a site. There's some incredible commitment there at the city side, and we're looking that there's the potential to create a regional revolving loan fund to do this elsewhere in western Montana. Secondly, I want to talk about processing oats, something good for everyone. Who had oatmeal today? Okay, good. There's a few of you. We were involved with the company, involved helping finance it, and then a change occurred, and a new company came to town. I want to talk a little bit about them and how they have worked out what I think is going to be an exciting future. Then finally, in the light of change, how we can preserve our industrial base by changing the way we look at our national resource through perhaps some multi-year contracting and get a regional coalition to work on this. First of all, let's take a look at the past, since we're talking about change. Everybody recognize that building or that site? Classic industrial site of the past. It's the Champion International site in downtown Missoula, probably about 30, 40, 50 years ago. You don't see any city around there at all. This is the site today. Let me back up there. You can see right in the middle of town. I want to thank WGM, by the way, for these slides, this Google Earth. They did a great job, and it helps to portray what's changed here. If you remember, that industrial site employed 1,000 men, and they went to work every day, and it closed in 1993. It was vacant property, as you see here, and the change is a vision like this. This is what we see as the future in the heart of Missoula. We have an opportunity here to redevelop this property, and it's one of the resources we're using to help redevelop this property is a EPA program called Brownfields Revolving Loan Fund. That's where the $1,125,000 came from to loan to the developer, Missoula or Millsite Revitalization Project LLC. But I want to point out that this is a major undertaking, that this change would not occur without commitment from the city and the Missoula Redevelopment Agency. And then we're working with, I mentioned EPA is a key partner, and the state DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality. I'll make a suggestion that I like to talk to legislators about the need to change a DEQ policy, but I'll do that later. We've learned a lot about this, and this Brownfields program has tremendous potential if we can put our arms and embrace it in Montana. There are brownfield sites all over western Montana and all over the state. The second change theme I've got is a company called GTC Nutrition. They are owned by a company called Corn Products International. That may not ring a bell, but I bet names like Mazola corn oil, Carroll corn syrup, and high fructose corn syrup ring a bell with all of you. The company that owns GTC Nutrition is the reason our kids are fat. But this company is changing. They are a global concern, and they have a presence in Missoula. Corn Products, this is a little quick snapshot of their corporate structure, and Missoula is GTC Oats, if you can see that one box. So we're on the map of the corporate structure here. This is a company now with an international strategy, and the product is called OatVantage. I'll hit that in just a minute. So as part of this company, as Corn Products took a look at the changing market, for 100 years they did everything you can with corn, such as high fructose corn syrup in soda pop. They're not dumb. They see the change coming, so they've acquired a company called GTC Nutrition, which is based in Boulder, Colorado. GTC Nutrition was a marketing company finding sources and supplying nutritional food supplements to customers across the world. They purchased the Nurture facility here in Missoula to manufacture the product called OatVantage. This is the Nurture facility, and they purchased this about a year ago, and they have underway manufacturing the product called OatVantage. So we are fortunate to have Corn Products. I think we're delighted that they've come to Missoula. Corn Products is a major commodities company in the world market. It's a $3 billion publicly traded company. Anytime we can get anybody like that to come to Montana, I think that's positive. But more interestingly is every ounce of oats that's processed in this facility, and by the way, you can buy this product on Amazon now, but comes from Canada. It comes in big one-ton sacks with the name Can Oats on it. So I was talking to the director of the Department of Agriculture yesterday and got his interest in maybe we can find a Montana source for oats. Those of you who remember history of Nurture, you'll remember the relationship they had with farmers in western Montana to supply oats, and that was back in the early 90s. So we're thinking as this company grows and it develops its product, the Oat Vantage, that they will start contracting for oats in all over the state. One interesting thing, and I do not claim to be an ag expert, but one very interesting thing is there's a lot of discussion about biodiesel, about oilseed crops. If you're going to grow oilseed crops in eastern Montana, you need an alternate crop. Every year you've got to alternate a crop. You can't grow them every year. The best crop to alternate with oilseed crops is oats. So we think there's some change occurring here that can be very positive for our economy in western Montana and the whole state. I want to point out here that there were some very interesting partners that made this project possible. We have Corn Products, who purchased the GTC Oats, who had the expertise in this market and knew that a product like Oat Vantage would be successful. The city played a key role here. The county was involved, Missoula County as well, and the Montana Department of Commerce. The Corn Products people, a very methodic Midwest company who just takes and does things very, very regularly. I told them when they bought the plant, there was a problem, and it was with the sewer bill. And they said, okay, yeah, we know that. And I said, well, they didn't really know that, but they got underway, and then they get their sewer bill, and it's astronomical because of the amount of product going into the sewer system. They needed to change their process by investing about $1 million in more equipment to pre-treat before they put this into the sewer system. What they asked for was a year time to do that and asked that the city would back off the sewer bill so that they could show that there was a partnership here. And I'm very delighted to tell you all that the city of Missoula cooperated, negotiated, and put a deal together that satisfied the company. They're going ahead now with a $1 million investment in new equipment, and they'll have the problem solved by the end of this year. Again, one other partner there that I think I should tell everyone, it's an organization you may not know about, but the Montana Manufacturing Extension Center. You got to love engineers because they solve problems for you. So that's a resource, again, that was critical. Craig Worst, who was at the university here, associated with the Manufacturing Center, was key in helping us put that together. One other area where some people might say we need change, and I think it's coming, is something to do with trees. But if you take a look at, when I talk to people who come to Missoula, those of us that live in the valley think we're pretty civilized, but our quality of life, our much highly touted quality of life, is very dependent on what goes on all that area that surrounds the valley we live in, hugely dependent on it. And I have the pleasure or the honor to talk about an idea that's starting to take root, that we see some change occurring here. And the idea is that all the economic development organizations in western Montana, from Hamilton to Kalispell and Libby, we met in Quinn's Hot Springs back in December. We agreed to work together to try to promote this idea of encouraging the Forest Service to do a little more active management of the forest, more thinning, and the result of that would be a more dependable supply of fiber from the forest for our mill industry that we have. And that would be a significant change that would allow us to go a long ways toward preserving some of these facilities that I think are diamonds in the rough, if you will. This is the Stimson property at Bonner. It's now only about half of that is being used. The other half, we're working with the company, with the Bitterroot Economic Development District and Missoula County, potentially the U.S. Economic Development Administration and the Montana Department of Commerce on a project to find another industrial activity for that part of the property where the plywood mill used to be at Bonner. Our point is we have an industrial site that's in place. It has all the infrastructure, the nexus of utilities, all of it comes in to support it. It would be tragic to see that go away. It's a real opportunity to look to the future, and what sort of industry can we recruit to locate there? That's underway, and again, it's again several partners involved with it. You'll hear more about that in the future. And then you have another small little facility in near Missoula. This, I think you all recognize this one. If you step back from a second and just take a look at these two, and I could include many others, but this is enough to get my point across. We're very fortunate in Montana to still have an infrastructure of the wood products industry. Chuck's going to talk a lot more about that and the challenges facing the industry. But from an economic development standpoint, these are tremendous assets, these industrial sites. If my board was to tell me, Dick, you got to go out and find 150, 200 acres and develop this plant like this from scratch, I would tell them, you got to find another guy, because you were not going to get that done. We need to take a look at these sites that have been managed well, environmentally sound, with good principles. Who knows what opportunities may come in the future with the processing of wood products if we can assure a reasonable supply and a consistent supply over the years. So that's an initiative that we're working on to talk about change. And one more word about change, you know, as somebody uses, it takes an economist to really define change. You know. Those of you who have, I recommend the book by Alan Greenspan, Age of Turbulence. That's his word for change. So thank you very much.
Questions for Dick? Comments? Yes?
I wanted to know what suggestion you have for DEQ for policy.
Very specifically, the question is, what suggestion would I have for DEQ for policy change? Well, very humbly and very respectfully, I would submit that we need to have a different policy toward the review of what's called the Voluntary Cleanup Plan, or VCP. When a developer hires a qualified engineering firm and they do all the assessment work and they've defined what needs to be done to make a site clean, and they submit the voluntary cleanup plan, to the best of our knowledge, and we're doing some research on this now. We've got an intern from the university who's contacting every state in the union to document this, but to the best of our knowledge, Montana is the only state that charges an hourly fee to review the voluntary cleanup plan. Every other state, Massachusetts, for example, charges a flat $10,000 fee. To date, the developer for the mill site project here in Missoula has run up a bill a little over $100,000 in fees from the DEQ to look at the voluntary cleanup plan. So before we pursue that with legislators, I think our role is to do the research, do what the Bureau does so well, is get our facts straight. So we're doing an intern project to make sure we've got this well documented. But you add that cost, I mean, that's, half of the cost of the cleanup is going for fees, legal fees, and the cost of review. So if we're going to redevelop this property, the reason I'm so bullish on brownfields is that they're located in many cases where there's streets, infrastructure in place. All we got to do is redevelop the site. I mean, heaven's sakes, Darby's got one on the north and one on the south of town. So if we can clean these sites up, we can redevelop them. But we have a couple of hurdles, this one in particular.
Other questions for Dick? Comments? If not, thank you, Dick. Oh, excuse me.
What kind of employment base are you looking at for wood painting?
What kind of employment base? Right now, they employ about 22 people. They basically hired back the people that were there with the prior company. Once they get this new system installed, and again, The deal that was brokered with the city was critical for them to even stay here. So that's a big success story. They are looking at 5 other products that are related to oats, and they are looking at expanding the plant. So they might get to 40 to 50 employees in the next couple of years.
Anything else for Dick? If not, thank you again, Dick. To look at a number of major industries in the state of Montana and some factors that are influencing some of the major industries in Montana. Specifically, we're going to deal with agriculture, travel and tourism, the healthcare industry, and manufacturing, including forest products. And we want to start with one of the largest industries in the state of Montana, and usually one of the most enjoyable to hear about, and that is travel and tourism. And to deal with travel and tourism, I would like to introduce the director of the Institute for Tourism and Recreation Research in the College of Forestry and Conservation at the University of Montana in Missoula. Would you please welcome Norma Nickerson?
I'm the other short one up here, Sheila, so it's not just you. Well, good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. You got yourself your coffee and you're comfortable in your chairs, and we're going to have a fun talk here today. And what I'd like to do first is show you something. Is we have 2 people in the Bureau that are actually retiring or retired, and it probably passed by you when Chuck said this morning that he's retired. Doesn't look like it, but he is. Officially, it was September 1st, August 31st, somewhere right in there. He's doing field work in that picture. But I want you to know that these 2 are the infamous economists that have kept this outlook going. Paul for 33 years. Chuck, I was just asking him this morning, maybe 30 years. They're the longevity of this outlook forum. Yes, please give him a hand. I don't even know where Paul went. He probably snuck out, and we'll get back to him in a minute. But what I'm going to do for the rest of my presentation on the travel and recreation outlook is dedicate this to Paul and Chuck. And yeah, I know you're going to giggle a little bit as we go along, but you know, it relates totally to this. So non-resident travel, let's look at what's been going on in non-resident travel in Montana. And this past year, we had a 2% growth. That growth is now up to 2.6 million non-resident visitors who are coming to this state. When you break that down as to why they're coming here, actually, about 3.6 million of those people are here primarily on vacation. About 2 million are visiting Paul and Chuck now that they're going to have all this time in the world. So all these friends and relatives are going to be coming. About 1.4 million are here specifically just for business. If you look at air traffic, you'll notice that we had an increase this past year, 2.9% increase, and that was after the year before when we went down, and our concern then was that a lot of the seat capacity was going downward, and my point last year was unless that changes, you know, you can only fill up the airplane so much, and there's nothing else you can do. Well, they've brought in a little bit more seat capacity, but the big thing that's changed with the airlines is that they're starting, our individual airport managers are out hustling to get more direct flights from other communities that we haven't seen before. So you'll see that in various communities around the state. You can go directly to Detroit or to Chicago, Las Vegas, I mean, Allegiant Airlines. I mean, look at what's going on there. And those are all things that are happening in all of our individual cities. But you'll notice that Bozeman and Billings had the largest increase in this past year of deboardings, and that was followed by Great Falls and Missoula. 5% increase in the 2 larger communities, and then we go down to an actual decrease, and I hate to say it, but you know, Butte has been on this decrease for years and years and years, and it's got to be something that they're a little bit concerned about. But overall, in the state, we're seeing an increase, and we expect that to continue as long as the seat capacity issue goes up. Visitation to national parks. You know, all I can say is, boy, Paul and Chuck must have gone to Yellowstone and Glacier a lot this summer or this year to get those numbers up as high as they are this year. If you didn't see it in the paper, you probably will know now that Yellowstone National Park had a milestone. They received the highest number of visitors ever in the history of the park in 2007. And that showed a 9.8% increase in 2007 over 2006. Never have they had, let me see, with 3.15 million recreation visitors to Yellowstone National Park. And you'll see also that Glacier went up. Nope, they didn't get their all-time high, but they got their second all-time high. And they're at 2.1 million visitors in 2007. And people were thinking that Glacier would actually go down because of the road reconstruction, and they put in this that Paul and Chuck are riding in right there, the shuttle. And people thought, you know, it's going to confuse, people aren't going to want to come and so forth, and it's actually been, people love it from what I hear. And how many of you tried it this summer? Did anybody out there? If you didn't, you should. Chuck's doing it right now. How is it, Chuck? You're seeing good views out the window there? But what is the reason for all of these changes in the national park? And it's not just Glacier and Yellowstone. The Mountain West parks, Yosemite, Rocky Mountain, Grand Canyon, they all saw increases in their visitation. You ask the park people, and they really don't know, and so we're going to throw out some ideas. The baby boomers are starting to retire in mass numbers, and those types of people, especially when you first retire, apparently, and Chuck and Paul will be able to tell us this, that you have the money right now, and so you can do these things. Maybe as you get a few years down the line, you're not as likely. You generally have your health, so you're going to go out. The decline in the U.S. dollar tends to keep people at home more, and so people aren't flying internationally because you can't spend as much over there. Or no, let's put it the other way. You spend way too much then when you're over there, and you get a better value for your dollar if you stick around here. That could have been part of it. The loonie up in Canada, you're hearing that. You know, Canadians are flocking down. Maybe you're not seeing it quite as much here in Missoula, but you talk to people in Great Falls, all along the High Line, in Kalispell, boy, the Canadian license plates are definitely there, and that's a good thing for the people who are seeing it in the northern tier of Montana. And we think that the local people, regional people, because of gas prices a little bit, maybe are doing some of their weekend trips and things a little closer to home, which would mean let's go to Yellowstone, let's go to Glacier, and that may have been one of the reasons for it. And the other thing we're seeing is shoulder season visitation is increasing. Why is that increasing is, again, the baby boom market, you're retiring. You can go in September, you can go in May, when before you really couldn't do it because maybe you were a teacher, maybe, you know, you were working all the time and you just didn't get any time off, and now you want to go when there's not as many people there, and so those shoulder seasons are increasing in their market. So park visitation, good year this past year. What about rooms sold in Montana? It's interesting. This year and last year, Montana outpaced the western states in terms of their growth in the number of rooms sold, and we're talking accommodations here. And what you see is we had a 4.2% increase as opposed to the mountain states of a 1% increase. Interesting about that is you have Paul and Chuck, who really like Montana, so they're contributing to this factor because they don't need to go out a lot and spend their hotel rooms outside of the state. So we thank them for contributing to the growth in rooms sold, and that probably will continue now that they're going to be retiring. Skiing. Skiing, as you look at this chart, and you see, I don't know who they're skiing with, but she's a nice-looking gal. But anyway, the ski industry is one of those that the climatologists say is really going to feel what's going on in terms of climate change that's happening here. And this chart that you see, we're going to be doing this a lot, up and down and up and down and up and down. It's just, there's going to be nothing that's going to be able to predict what the ski area visits will be like, because weather and our climate and what's going on there is going to determine all of that. This last year, 9% decrease. What I can tell from what's going on right now is it's going to go back up again, because it's a good year in much of the state. So again, up and down and up and down, but last year wasn't good, and and I'll talk in a minute about that, but what you see when the ski industry is looking not so good, we have a following forest fire season that goes along with it. But what I'm doing here is I'm starting in on some market segments within the travel industry, and skiing is one of them. And a few other ones that I haven't talked about before that I'm going to do in just a minute is outfitting and guiding, agritourism or farm and ranch tourism, recreation, and cultural arts in the tourism relation, and just talk briefly, one slide each of those, of some studies that we've done. Outfitting and guiding in the state of Montana. A lot of people don't look at it as a huge industry, but let me tell you, it's one of those where, one, the person who's doing this particular job is doing what they really, really like to do, and they're out there, they're having fun, and they're bringing quite a few dollars into the state just by virtue of doing a guided trip throughout the years, or certain segments of like hunting or fishing or that sort of thing. What we found, and this is the first time ever, we did a full, complete, thorough search of how many outfitters are in the state of Montana. You'd think that'd be an easy number to find. Chrissy is sitting over there. She's worked on this one with me, and it was difficult, but you will like to know that in 2005, there were 998 outfitters in the state of Montana and approximately 4,300 guides. Okay? Those people took people out on trips. 318,600 people went on trips. 92% of those people are from out of state. So they're bringing in lots of money, and then they're giving these people a way to live and live in the state of Montana. As you see by this, 39% of the economic impact is through hunting outfitters. And as you know, the hunting season doesn't last forever. It's a short time frame, and so that's a pretty big benefit in a very short amount of time. 31% of the outfitter dollars are represented by fishing outfitters, and then the rest of it, 29%, are all the other outfitted trips. And when I say outfitted trips, I'm talking you go on a half-day, full-day, 4-day rafting trip. You go on a photo safari. You go a bird-watching trip, and the guide takes you along. All of those different types of things that occur out there. And these are producing jobs and jobs that people like to be doing. So it's out there. It's a nice little niche within the travel and tourism, the recreation industry. Agritourism or farm and ranch. We did a study in 1996 to determine how many farms and ranches in the state of Montana are actually doing or making money in the recreation tourism industry. And we found that 1,100 farms were making some sort of their income, not all of it, on tourism and recreation. Last year in 2006, we found that 2,418 farmers and ranchers were making money off the tourism and recreation business, which is a 120% increase in that 10, 11-year period. So the farmers and ranchers are looking at this industry as one way to supplement what they're getting from the farm, from their agricultural business. And what's interesting about it is that the large increases, it's kind of a funny thing to show there, but when you do a study 10 years ago, you find out better ways to ask the question 10 years later, and so you can't totally compare them. But in 1996, block management, everybody know what block management is? It's a program that FWP has with individual landowners to allow people to come and hunt on their property and have access to their property. That was really it was in the makings. I mean, it was there in place, but they really did a push for it. And you can see that the big increase was in block management, fee hunting and fishing, and then the guiding and outfitting. Those were the three that really jumped up in this 10, 11-year time period, allowing you folks or non-residents to come in and enjoy the lands that they don't have to be open to you. That's their private land. So it's a big part of the agritourism is becoming bigger, and the reason I can say that is in this study that we did, we found out that an additional 1,700 farmers and ranchers are considering within the next 5 years to be part of the tourism recreation industry on their lands. So it's going to continue to grow, and it's a fun one because in one way it allows those farmers and ranchers to stay on that farm and not have to sell it off. Culture and arts. The cultural art, a lot of people, when you think of non-resident tourism in Montana, don't think that, where does culture and art fit in, because we're a natural resource state and people come here for all those things I just mentioned. Well, you'd be surprised, and so we did a little study. It was sort of a case study in Bozeman and Livingston. And what we found is that 37% of the visitors to Bozeman and Livingston chose culture and arts as one of their reasons for visiting, and of those, 66% of them planned that while they were at home. It wasn't just, walk down the street and start to see an event going on or go into this art gallery and it just happened. No, they planned this at home, that culture or arts was part of their trip to the Bozeman-Livingston area. And what we found out is that those people who do plan that at home and are interested in the culture and arts in the area that they're visiting spend more money on everything else while they're there. And even though they're still there doing outdoor recreation types activities, they're spending money in the area, and probably and more so than folks who are there just for the outdoor recreation. So it brings in a nice little complement. And another thing like the farmers and ranchers, like the outfitters and guides, it allows local artisans to stay in their homes and work and make a living while they're here in Montana. Okay, out of those market segments, I put this one in here because it's been a little topic that we've been looking at in little pieces here and there, but climate change. When we do our Outlook survey of businesses around the state, we ask them certain things, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. But what are the issues that climate change is going to have, and what are the effects on Montana's tourism and recreation industry? And I just pull out the ones that probably are the easiest ones to figure out. Skiing, I've already mentioned. Fishing. Well, if you have an early melt, which is what the climatologists are showing, and we've seen it, much recently, the stream flows are reducing in the summertime, and because they don't have as much water going through there and cold water coming in from the melting snows and that sort of thing, the water level is high, and if you're a fisherman, they're asking you, please don't fish in the middle part of the day. And some rivers, they just say, hey, don't fish at all. And so this is having an effect on both you, who live here, and people who are coming to this state to go fishing. Rafting, same thing. If you don't have the water flow, well, our rafting outfitters and guides are going to have a little trouble in the August time frame in getting their people down get out and start pushing the raft, everybody. We're stuck on this rock, and you're going to see that happening more and more. Trail usage, well, we have forest fires going on quite a bit, and obviously the Forest Service has to be just, can't go there. This trail is closed off, and that's starting to happen, and it's pieces, though, and that's the one thing that we got to keep in mind. It's generally not a blanket everywhere all over the western part of the state or eastern central part of the state. It's in pieces. Hunting, you might think, well, how can climate change affect hunting? Well, one of the big ones, and you notice it just this past year, that I think it was the elk season they extended for 2 weeks, because for a while, I think there wasn't any snow, and the elk were way up high, and then we had a lot of elk, so we had to do something about that, and all those things come together. But why do we have a lot of elk, or why do we have a lot of deer? Is because we're not having bad winters that are hurting them. And you don't want to think about that, but that's the way it works. And so the hunting season and what FWP is going to do about it might be they're going to change the seasons. You might be hunting for your elk in, mid-December all the time now, rather than starting in November. And then general tourism. Basically what we're saying is that the shoulder seasons, and this is, in a way, a benefit of climate change, as you get better weather in both the spring and the fall, you open up the opportunities for people to do more things other than just July and August. And so you're going to see that happening. Okay, so we asked our businesses in the tourism and recreation field, what do you think about this climate change thing, and are you concerned about it at all, and that sort of thing. Basically what we see is that 67% of those people in the tourism and recreation business said that they were very or somewhat concerned about the fact that climate change is going to affect them, that it'll be there. They're watching it, let's put it that way. So then we asked, well, in the next 12 months, what might you do to your contribution to help alleviate this if there is that sort of thing. And the biggest one was I'm going to change my light bulbs. You know, we can all do that. I don't know how many of you have, but you know, business people can do that as well as you at your home. And so on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being always or they've done it type thing, you'll notice that changing their light bulbs. And then recycling was the other one. The funny thing about recycling, though, is, as you know, we live here in, you know, glass, you can't do recycling. I go down to Emigrant, Montana, and I can recycle my glass. So we got a little problem here in Montana that we're not very consistent, and I think that's something that we need to work on. The one that they said least was they're going to encourage their employees to walk or carpool or bus. The reason that was in there, and I think the reason that they answered it that way, was they don't have a lot of employees or any at all, and they work out of their home, and you know, that sort of thing, so it didn't even apply to them. Okay, what is our outlook for 2008? It's actually pretty good. In fact, we're saying Montana is going to be better than the U.S. The Travel Industry Association is saying that leisure domestic travel is going to go up 0.4%. International visits, however, to the United States are expected to go up 4%, and a good share of that is the Canadian, but it is elsewhere as well. 55% of the businesses that we surveyed in the tourism recreation arena said that they expect an increase in 2008 based on inquiries and reservations and all those things that they have lined up. Strength in the Canadian dollar is obviously a plus for any of the states that are along the Canadian border. It is a good snow year so far, so we're not already in a deficit in terms of economic gains in terms of the travel industry for Montana. And then we're expecting about a 2% increase. And it's really nice being steady, you know, 2% last year, 2% this year. And I keep saying that every year, but you know, as long as I can say it's on the positive side and things are still looking good, I don't feel so bad about it. But 2% is good and bigger than what we're expecting nationwide. So what I want to do is basically thank Paul Polzin and Chuck Keegan, and I'm telling them they need to travel, recreate, and enjoy their ventures because it's people like them that will keep our economy going. And I want to thank them very much for the opportunity. I've been doing this since 1996 with the Outlook seminars, and it's been a great pleasure, and they're wonderful people to work with. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. You got that a little bit wrong, Norma. I'm depending on all of you to work hard to pay for my retirement. Questions for Norma? Yes.
What do we need to do in Missoula to get a major art museum and cultural natural history museum to house the University of Montana collection?
Talk to Dick King. Oh, the question was, what do we need to do to get a major art museum in Missoula to house lots of stuff that we have out there? I said, talk to Dick King. The one thing about the arts, and you know this if you're interested in it, is it's hard to generate funds to get things moving like a huge building because the arts are usually one of those indirect types of activities like I showed here. People are coming here for, you could use our little study a little bit to boost it. Yeah, they're coming to Montana for the outdoors, but a lot of them are starting to come here for the outdoors and some of that arts because we do offer it. It's just not known by the non-residents as much, and most of the time, a lot of times they are just happenstance. But I don't have a good answer for that one. It's an indirect thing. It's a quality of life thing. And if we care about our quality of life, it's just one of the many things that we should be doing. Maybe Dick would put that in his development area. You know, there's a good spot because you're going to have a lot of people milling around. And if you had an art museum right there, there you go.
Have time for one more, yes.
You're doing tracking on ATV use, snowmobile use?
The question is, does Norma do any tracking on ATV and snowmobile use?
I'm going to pass this one off because generally the snowmobile studies that have been going on, you want to come up here and answer that one? Jim, come on. But 10%? Did you hear that?
Jim Sylvester, an economist with our bureau, has done analyses of the snowmobile industry and has a report that he can make available to you. Okay.
Let me just say, the one thing I do know is that the sales of ATVs and snowmobiles are still going up. I do know that. What they don't know is it all recreational, or is it what you've seen on farms and ranches, that the horse it's not used anymore, and they're going to that sort of vehicle. So the recreational or work-related, that is what we don't know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Norma. I know now why it was suggested that I not say anything about Paul's retirement. I would have touched up that fish picture so nobody could tell where I caught that fish, Norma. I hope they... No, thank you very much, Norma.